Hello, friends of Sounds of the Unknown. Tonight we have a chilling tale sent in by one of our followers. This story is claimed to be 100% true, and after reading it, I can tell you it's one of the most unsettling experiences I've ever heard. Sit back, turn down the lights, and prepare yourself for a night in the car. I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe it's because I need someone else to hear it, someone who might understand. I sent this to you, your channel, because, honestly, your content has been the only thing keeping me sane since this happened. You talk about things that lurk in the dark, that can't quite be explained, and that's exactly what this was. Let me start from the beginning. This happened last October, just before Halloween. I remember the time clearly because the air was getting cold and the leaves had turned that deep red and gold color that only seems to happen in New England. I decided to visit a friend who lived in a small town in New Hampshire, about a 3-hour drive from where I live. I needed a break. Life had been heavy and I thought a little escape would do me good. I left later than I should have. It was already dusk when I hit the highway, and by the time I got to the smaller back roads that lead to my friend's place, it was completely dark. No streetlights, no other cars, just me and my headlights cutting through the night. Now I'll admit something up front. I've never been great with directions. I always rely on my phone's GPS. But of course that night my phone decided to die, and like an idiot, I hadn't brought a charger. I thought, no problem, I'll just follow the road signs. But the deeper I drove, the fewer signs I saw. Soon it felt like I was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothing but trees. After driving aimlessly for what felt like forever, I decided to pull over and figure out what to do. I found a small dirt turnout off the road, a tiny space, surrounded by thick woods. It wasn't ideal, but I figured it was better to stop and wait until morning than to risk getting even more lost. I locked the doors, reclined my seat, and tried to get some sleep. But sleep didn't come. The silence was too much. You'd think being in nature would be peaceful, but it wasn't. It felt heavy, like the darkness was alive, pressing against the car. It must have been around 1 a.m. when I first heard it, a faint sound just outside the car. At first I thought it was the wind, maybe the trees moving, but no, it wasn't random enough for that. It was a deliberate sound, like something dragging along the ground. I froze. My heart started pounding in my chest, and I strained to hear better. The sound came again, louder this time, closer. It was coming from behind the car. I told myself it was probably an animal, a raccoon, a deer. This is New Hampshire, right? There are animals everywhere, but deep down I knew it wasn't. And then I saw it. Something was standing just outside the driver's side window. It wasn't human. I mean, it looked vaguely human-shaped, tall, skinny, but its proportions were all wrong. Its arms were too long, and its head was tilted at an unnatural angle. The face, I'll never forget the face. Pale, almost grey, with deep, hollow eye sockets. It didn't have a mouth, or if it did, I couldn't see one. It just stood there, staring at me through the glass. I couldn't move, I couldn't even breathe. My brain was screaming at me to start the car, to get the hell out of there, but my body wouldn't listen. It was like I was paralyzed. The thing didn't move for what felt like minutes. And then, without warning, it was gone. Not gone like it walked away. Gone like it just wasn't there anymore. For a moment I thought I'd imagined the whole thing. Maybe I dozed off and dreamt it. But before I could convince myself, I heard it again, that dragging sound, only now it was on the other side of the car. I turned my head slowly, terrified of what I might see. Sure enough, there it was. Standing just outside the passenger side window, staring in at me. I don't remember making the decision to move. All I know is that suddenly, my hands were on the keys, turning the ignition. The car roared to life, and I slammed my foot on the gas. The tires spun in the dirt before catching, and the car lurched forward. My headlights cut through the darkness, but I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror. I didn't want to see if it was following me. I drove for what felt like hours, even though it was probably only 20 minutes. Eventually, I spotted the glow of a gas station in the distance, a single pump, and a tiny building with flickering neon lights. I pulled in and parked right under the lights, needing the safety of their harsh brightness. The attendant inside looked up as I stumbled through the door. I must have looked like a mess, pale, shaking, barely able to speak. I asked if he had a phone I could use, and he handed me an old landline. I called my friend, trying to explain what had happened, though I don't think I made much sense. She came to get me about an hour later. By then, I'd calmed down enough to tell her the story in more detail. She listened, but I could tell she didn't believe me. "You were tired," she said. "Your mind was playing tricks on you." But it wasn't my mind. The next morning, I convinced her to drive back with me to the spot where I pulled over. I needed to see it in the daylight, to prove to myself that it had really happened. When we got there, the first thing I noticed was the car. There were smudges all over the windows, long, greasy streaks, like something or someone had been pressing their hands against the glass. Then we saw the footprints. They were huge, far too big to be human, and they weren't shaped like normal footprints. They looked more like claw marks, deep impressions in the dirt that trailed off into the woods. I didn't stick around to investigate further. We got back in her car and drove away, and I haven't been back since. To this day, I don't know what I saw. I don't know what it wanted or why it let me go. But I do know this: I'm not the only one. Sometimes late at night, when I'm driving alone, I hear it again. The faint sound of something dragging along the ground, and then the tapping on the glass. If you're out there and you've seen something like this, please let me know. I need to know I'm not alone. If you've experienced something like this, or any other unexplained encounter, please share your story in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more true horror stories just like this one. Your story might even be featured in a future episode. This has been Sounds of the Unknown. Stay safe, and whatever you do, don't stop on a dark road at night.